Hey, Vanessa, how are you doing today?
I'm well.
That is great. Well, this is Brent Hansen with Nova Careers, and we are interviewing our founder and president, Vanessa Green. It's a little early morning here, but Vanessa, we're going to get into some questions about the why and the how, and a little bit about you and Nova Careers. Head
Yes.
nodding is a good thing. All right, let's jump right into it. Number one, we are going to ask you what inspired you to actually start Nova Careers, Vanessa.
All right, I'm going to try to keep it shorter. But honestly, when I was a teenager, I was confused as to what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then when my kids became teenagers and they started getting that same question, what do you want to be? I didn't feel like I had the tools to help them find their career path or guide them onto a career path. And at that point, which was, gosh, 13 years ago, even longer than that, probably, there was nothing out there. And I started thinking back then everybody was creating web pages. And I thought if I could interview people and put it up on a blog so that kids could go there and just learn about different careers. Well, now we've evolved into this media world. So now I want to interview people, but live interviews and put it on a podcast. I just want to expose teenagers to as many careers. What is a different word for careers? Jobs as
Opportunity.
possible, opportunities as possible.
Yeah, there you go.
Just so
No,
that they maybe have a little bit better education. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities out there that I don't know of, and definitely kids, teenagers don't know of.
yeah, I think that's so relatable for so many people growing up where, they have this idea in their mind of what they want to be. Things change, circumstances changes, even geographies change on what's really available to people. And it sounds like what you have set up here is really a great expansion on what they get in school on taking a paper test or a computer test on what they want to be when they grow up. So a really neat idea. I'm going to let Noelle jump in here.
Okay. Um, can you share a bit about your own career journey and what shaped your perspective?
All right. So I would say that I'm still at 51 trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, but I definitely had no clue when I went to college what I wanted to be. And it took me until my mid 40s when I got a job as an activities assistant at a assisted living home. At that point, I no longer felt like work. I was working with the residents and loved doing my job. So it became just something I enjoyed going to and really feel like that if I would have known about that job when I was younger, that would be the direction that I would have taken, but I just happened to stumble upon it. So,
I love that. That's a great answer. I was going to say something that I forgot.
I have a lot of chicken scratch going, just jotting real quick because Vanessa, super
to
super
you,
interesting
Brent,
answers. Yeah. Yeah, no, back to me. And again, so relatable with the changes in technology, things like that. I think it's really unique that you like you said, at your age, trying to learn new technologies, jump into this atmosphere of social media, everything else. And I think it's so cool that you can have an experience like you did with the residents at that activity center and how that kind of shaped how you approached Nova Careers. So that's really cool, Vanessa. The next question I wanted to ask was, was there a moment in your life when you wished you had something like this podcast? I know the whole podcast landscape in the last probably decade is what has blown up. But for your experience, was there a time when you really thought this could be a big deal to me to be sharing socially in this way?
I would say, yeah, I would say when I meet people, I feel like when I'm out and about and I meet people, I'm always intrigued and I've started collecting business cards and every day it seems like I meet someone who has a job that I've never heard of and I'm like, "Oh, man, I need you. I need my podcast so that I can interview you and get this information out because I feel like at my age, if I've never heard of that job, then I'm sure others haven't heard of it as well. So I just think it's a great way to reach the masses, and teenagers are on social all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how people too, like, you're constantly thinking in this environment, like, oh, how is this going to fit into my podcast, and what we're trying to achieve here. And you probably see these interesting jobs, and initially you're just like, well, save that, save that, save that. Like, I'm gonna circle back to this one, but there's so many careers out there. So I think what you have in mind here is just very unique and super interesting. So Noel, go ahead and hop back in.
I just wanted to add that I think, especially, I know you mentioned it kind of briefly earlier, but for teenagers or even adults nowadays, the number one question you're going to get asked when you meet someone new is, what do you do? Or like, what are you going to do with your life? And so to just know that there's more job opportunities or careers out there, and it's not just being a teacher or a doctor. There's hundreds of other options to do.
Even as a teacher, you can be so many different things. Not just a teacher, you could be a counselor, you could be a principal. In the medical field, there's an array of jobs, and we think nurse, doctor, and that's it. But there's still in those fields so many different jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. That leads us to our next question, which we kind of answered ish. Why do you feel it's important for teens to hear real career stories?
So my passion here would be for teens to feel inspired, get excited. It's scary, one, to try to figure out what you want to be for the rest of your life. And I'm not saying that this is going to, make that decision, because so many people start out in one career and pivot, but this could also be that catalyst too. Well, I thought I wanted to be that, but now I'm going to, check this job out because that sounds interesting. But I feel like the more exposure they have to different things is going to be helpful, and hopefully they'll find something that they're passionate about and, find something that doesn't feel like work.
I also think it's like the real career stories and asking or finding out like what people actually do on their day to day and what they have to go through during that day also just gives you like a perspective of like, okay, what is actually in this job and what is required of this job, and is it something that I would actually like?
Not all rainbows.
Yeah,
Isn't that the truth?
That's life.
that's just tough life. It's the
Yeah.
behind the scenes of all the glamour. Yeah.
And it's a comfort thing too. I think that's important too with what VaNessa said was, just because you feel boxed in sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of people within careers that are like, that is what I wanted to be when I grew up. Things change, your life changes, your situations change, financially things change, and it's good to be flexible and to know now through something like Nova Careers, like what other careers are out there without having to Google search yourself to death, right?
Right.
Vanessa, looking at Nova Careers, you kind of have this mission of see it, dream it, be it, which I think is really, really creative, because it really captures like what you're shooting for. So basically you took an idea, you dreamt about it per se, and you're like, wow, if I could get this podcast. So you're living this right now, like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I'm live. It's a little scary. People think like an influencer or a podcast, so easy. But when there's a camera in your face and there's questions coming at you and you're trying to keep things lively, that was all hurdles that were in place, but now you're doing it.
Okay. What do you hope listeners will gain from tuning in?
I know I keep saying teenagers, but I think this really can benefit a wide age range of people. I feel like not only career decisions, where you want to be, learn more about jobs, but also just finding out about more people's jobs. I think that just learning about people is interesting. Maybe it'll help us connect with people more, learning about other people's jobs.
Yeah. In this day and age, too, networking is becoming how people are getting their jobs. So I think it's great if you can connect people, anyone, with like, oh, I'm interested in this job. And then this is the person, or this is someone that you can connect with to learn more about it and ask questions. I think that's great. This made me think when I was in college and I was in school for sports journalism, and someone that I knew connected me with a sports journalist from the local news, who then connected me with a sports journalist who actually went to, or who was actually at GCU at the time. So working in that field right now, but still just knowing people.
Networking is important.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I got my current.
yeah. I think there was probably some connection somewhere. I mean, maybe not in your current situation, but when I interview individuals at my place of work, a lot of time it is based on references. And there's always that reference page that people are looking at, like, who sent you this way? How do I know them? I knew this guy who knew this guy who knew this gal and said they were a good worker. And it's amazing. I mean, the majority of the workforce, I think there's inroads to a lot of that through networking, and how the networking takes place is probably a lot different than it used to be. You know, there's not these young professionals networks necessarily that are as expansive as they used to be, but, you know, whether through different social networks or things like that or pages, I think that's how a lot of people meet in these scenarios. So going to the next one, VaNessa, we wanted to kind of ask about the podcast itself. You know, why did you choose podcasting, whether it's in a YouTube type situation or how you chose that to share these stories that you're looking for?
Well, definitely YouTube. Brent, I know you would know this. Kids are watching YouTube. They sit and watch YouTube videos all day long. So just the natural progression of, I don't know if they listen to podcasts, but we can turn that YouTube video into a podcast really easily. So just trying to cover social media. Obviously, it would be the video podcast on YouTube, but just trying to meet kids where they are. And of course, we will be on the other social media as well so that we can really try to reach them where they're at. And YouTube has become like the #1 learning platform for kids. Maybe they can learn something useful other than making slime.
It's funny
Slime's
that
fun.
you say that because right now all of my coworkers and their like what they let their kids watch is on YouTube, kids TV, whatever. I mean, toddlers are not your audience. It's still popular with the younger generations, but and podcasting, I mean, I just looked up the statistics for podcasting and the ages are 18 to 34 and then 35 to 54. But I still think, I mean, if I had kids and teenagers, I would love them to listen to this as opposed to something else. So I think approaching it from if you're a stricter parent and letting your child listen to a podcast is something that I would allow versus a YouTube video.
I think, you know, let me pounce on that too. You know, Noelle, we're fortunate that we have Noelle here who is Gen Z age range and myself being a millennial and VaNessa, you know, mentioned your age earlier, excuse me, being, you know, more Gen X. I think the podcasts are kind of a natural progression from what was probably reading a news article years ago, maybe 20, 30 years ago. And that progressed into people having their own blogs, right? Where you would read about what you are now vocalizing through podcasts. And I think the podcast environment is really just a blog that is spoken. And I think that's what you're kind of aiming for. And it's getting people's attention because they want quick information at their fingertips. They don't want necessarily have to read about it. So now it's progressed from fully reading to reading opinions to now voicing opinions. And I think that's what's really cool about this and mainstream.
And I'm very much an auditory learner. I would rather listen to a book than actually pick up a book and read it. And I'm also a multitasker. So if I can be listening to a podcast and cleaning or cooking, you know, not that kids are doing much of that, but they can be listening to it on their way to work or on their way to school or, you know, it's a good multitask tool. And we know that we as a whole have tons of stuff coming at us nowadays. So doing 2-3 things at a time is the norm. So I love that you can listen to a podcast and do other things or and that's the thing. You can put on a podcast, stick your phone in your pocket and continue to do whatever. YouTube video, if you want to see the interaction, you can jump on there and watch.
What kinds of career paths can we expect to hear about?
I can't even imagine how many careers there are out there, but as many. And Brent has kind of alluded to this, but we've got 3 different age brackets here. And actually, Noelle's in Arizona, Brent's in North Dakota, and I'm in South Carolina. So we hope to cover a lot of career paths and an array of guests. I mean, I have a list already of 30 people I personally know who I would like to interview, but also, like I said, I've picked up business cards from people along the way when I'm out and about. So I'll be contacting them to interview them as well. So I don't know if there's not an expectation because there's just so many options out there. So many people, so many jobs available. So the content is endless, honestly.
I think it would be cool. This is just me brainstorming now. This isn't lead into a question, but I think it'd be cool to interview an actual teenager too and ask them questions.
No, I think that's a good idea too. Gotcha. Okay, VaNessa, how is Nova Careers going to be differ itself from someone else's typical career advice?
Career advice. Well, one, we're not giving advice. We're just introducing people to the
Introducing
wide
kids.
variety of, yes. And I know Brent had said something earlier, but when I was a teenager, you would go to the library. We barely had computers back then. You'd fill out a form and then it would tell you, this is your career path. And it was like, okay, but then what about those things? Like I know nothing. Now I got to go and do a bunch of research for all these different jobs, you know. Then it progressed to the internet where you could take quizzes, but I still feel like it just leaves you to do more and more of your own research. Not that that's a bad thing, but this is going to put that information in front of you versus you going and having to dig for it essentially. It's media. It's on social media, so it's more of the way of the future. So
I like that. I like that.
it's like jobs.
So far, it's been really great information. I really appreciate you taking the time for all this. We just got a handful of questions left that we want to get to you. If you've still got some time for us.
Yep, sure.
All right. So this is going to be more about personal connection, some of the relatability. Noelle's going to have a few questions for you here.
If you could go back and give your teenage self one piece of career advice, what would it be?
One piece of career advice. Well, I would say probably, this is probably going to go against what people think. You don't have to go to college, right? I feel like back when I was in high school, college was kind of the normal progression. I know in the last 10 years, it's been you can take a gap year, or a lot of people take a gap year. So I think just that, like, it feels like you have to know everything as soon as you graduate high school. You don't have to know everything. You're not going to know everything. I don't know everything at my age, but there's just a lot of pressure to have it all figured out. So I'm hoping that this will reduce that pressure for kids. And if I just relax, enjoy, and just know that you don't have to have it all figured out.
I do like that. I was thinking just now too that school counselors, those who are in charge of making sure kids can find their career path, whatever, and you mentioning how you want this to be in schools in the future. I think even for school counselors to watch this and help and just like know like all the different jobs out there, if they have a great relationship with a student, they can be like, hey, check this out, check out this job, you might like that. And then I think there would be less pressuring or like telling kids, hey, go to college, go to college. That's your only way to make it successful in life. Brent, do you have anything to add to that?
Just a little bit about, again, generationally, I think the family dynamics of, possibly even females on what their outlook was going back probably 30, 40 years compared to 10, 20 years ago compared to now. I mean, people are waiting longer to have children. They're having less children. They're career focused at times. I think that all started to kind of take shape probably 80s, 90s, but it's something where people were getting married at age 20. They were having their first kids in their early 20s. That dynamic shifted a little bit with my age group where late 20s to 30, you were seeing marriages and having kids. Now I have a lot of people around me that don't have kids or haven't gotten married. So a lot of that takes shape too on your career choices that, hey, when you're done with high school, you do not know what you're going to do. And what you think, even if you watched and heard about VaNessa Green and her great Nova careers and you're 18, you said, that's it, that's the one. Your family situation could change. Everything else could change 10 years later. So I think it's just the open-mindedness of having information at your fingertips to say, hey, I know that was a dream when I was 16, 17. It's not when I'm 26, 27. And it may not be when I'm 47, 48, 50, or even 60. I mean, you can always change. You can always change if there's something out there that's going to either change your personal situation, work situation, financial situation. So no, I think that's really good advice to give those teenagers, VaNessa.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Noelle. I'll let you keep rolling.
What excites you most about starting this journey?
Well, for me personally, is interviewing people. I want to find out. I'm just a curious person by nature, and so actually interviewing people, if no one was to see this podcast or YouTube video, for me, just the journey of interviewing people and talking to them and learning more about the world out there is exciting to me.
Like that.
Anything what scares you about that? Or the challenges ahead?
The challenges for me are just believing in myself and putting myself out there. Are people going to watch? But then it goes back to the previous question, like, even if no one watched, this is so interesting to me that it would be a fun journey. So I need to put those fears aside and not worry about that and just, and really understand that when I'm interviewing someone, it's not about me, it's about them and focusing on them. So I really don't have to worry about me at that point. I get to sling all the questions at them and so
You sit back and listen. How do you hope teens feel after listening to each episode?
maybe not after every episode, I need to stop saying that. But I would say for sure that they would connect and get excited about their future and that they would want to listen more. They would want to tune in more because maybe that didn't resonate with them. That's not, in the field that they love, but they want to tune in for the next one because maybe that's going to be the one where they really connect with that job that's out there.
It's good. But the last thing that we wanted to know, and we appreciate all the time you've spent, going over this dream of yours, but what does success truly look like to you for this project?
Success to me would be helping youth to not be scared of their future, but be excited about their future. And, starts with just one, just ignite the fire with one.
Answer.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful statement, because I think the word fear is probably out there a lot. I mean, I know what I want to do. And it's like Nova Careers is like this handhold, like, we got you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I can hear that in your voice. So, well, VaNessa, I think everything you told us today, everything you told us about yourself, your journey, expectations, and goals, I mean, it's all awesome. Really excited for you in this journey with Nova Careers. And yeah, best of luck with everything that you have going on. Thanks for taking the time with us today.
Thank you both calling in so early.
Great answers. So fun.
Excited to start.
Bye.